Disclaimer: this episode was recorded at the end of 2023, and some things have changed in Bridget's life. These changes concern her shelter volunteer status, and she will be sharing these on a future episode, so please stay tuned. With that in mind, please enjoy this episode and look forward to our next episode with Wild Wolfe Pack Treats and Bridget. This episode features a paid partnership with Wild Wolfe Pack Treats. Wild Wolfe Pack Treats are all natural, organic ingredient treats made with lots of love from Bridget's kitchen. Wild Wolfe Pack Treats are the snack that gives back. Bridget donates half of her sales to a variety of different rescues and organizations that help animals find the lives they deserve.
Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, a new kind of podcast where no topic is off limits. We're bringing in experts and owners to have the conversations we should be having as a dog community. Each week, a new guest will share firsthand experiences, educational resources, or professional guidance to help you learn and grow along with your dog. You won't get one perspective here, you'll get them all, because every dog is different and every owner is too.
You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk, or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm Em, and I'm here with Josh as usual.
Hello.
And tonight's guest is Bridget from Wild Wolfe Pack Treats. How are you tonight, Bridget?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be on with you two.
We're super excited to have you. You have such a really cool program that you run and treats that you make that we personally use in our home. And I'm so excited to share this with everyone. So let's start off with you just kind of giving the audience a little bit of information about you.
Okay, sounds great. I'd love to jump in. I'm a stay-at-home mom. My name is Bridget. I have two young girls. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, so we are in it right now. I've been a stay-at-home mom for almost 6 years. My 5-year-old's about to be 6 on December 23rd. And I have always loved being a mom, but I think a lot of moms relate that being a mom is such a all-encompassing situation, and it takes a lot of your identity away when you have kids. And I really needed a way to get my identity back. And my business and my work in rescue at the shelter has really come full circle and been such an amazing thing for my mental health, along with all the work that I do to help animals and spoil dogs, which I love to do. I have 3 dogs of my own. They're all rescues. One is from Texas, one is from Tennessee, and then another one is also from Texas that I rescued recently about 8 months ago or so. And I honestly randomly just started baking treats one day. I had 2 extra bananas on the counter. They were about to go bad, and I had already made a banana bread. So I was like, what can I do with these? Oh, my dogs are almost out of treats. So I made them and randomly just dropped them off at my neighbor's house because the batch made about 200, and my dogs do not need to eat 200 treats.
My dog would argue that she absolutely needs to eat 200 treats.
She probably would. That's not enough, Dad.
Another.
Well, while we're talking about the treats, let's just plug this here. Bridget is also the one who is in charge of the Straight Up Dog Talk logo treats.
Oh,
We also have Toby and Fitz treats as well. So just so you guys know, if you want some Straight Up Dog Talk cookies, they are out there and available.
Artemis doesn't need the ego boost.
Yeah, we have all kinds of flavors. I do seasonal flavors too. So, and if any dogs have allergies, I can definitely work with that as well.
So how did you go from just making 200 treats to a full line now?
Yeah, so my neighbor that I dropped him off at, she actually works for SCORE, which is a government-funded small business kind of mentorship program. And she told me you should try selling these. And I was like, no, lady, I'm not into selling. I don't want to start a small business. No. And then I gave it a little bit of time and some thought. And I said, why not? Let's try it. Thinking I'll just keep it really small with friends and family. I posted it on Facebook, and one of my older cousins commented and said, wait a minute. You need licensing, you need insurance, you need all these things. And in the moment, I was so kind of sad and frustrated because I had this massive, great idea and you're just stomping on my dreams. And in hindsight, I'm looking at it as such a massive, wake up call for me because, of course, you need all those things. I mean, you're dealing with precious lives that could be really negatively impacted if the treats aren't properly baked and all those things. So I kind of took a step back and did a little bit more due diligence and made it a business.
You're also dealing with capitalism. So,
Exactly.
Things get screwed up all the time when you're dealing with capitalism.
That's
Exactly.
a fair statement. It's a fair statement. So you this was a process though. Like it didn't just happen overnight because you were already involved with, the rescue work. You said that you got involved because you just needed to help like take a piece of your identity back and kind of give yourself that mental health stability, but also like having other adults to talk to when you're only interacting with small children is kind of a thing.
Oh my God, for sure.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how your journey as a shelter volunteer started, and then walk us through how it evolved into becoming a program that supports shelter programs.
Yeah. So I have always been involved in rescue work. When I was a young child, probably about 12 or so, I was involved in a program in New Mexico, where I'm from originally, called Camp Love a Pet. And our job during the summer program was to take a dog that had been in the shelter for an extended period of time and kind of put them under our wing and teach them basic manners, right? Like walking on a leash, sitting, laying down, impulse control, just making the dog more adoptable. And ideally, by the end of the summer, the dog would be adopted, which for a 12-year-old child, that is absolutely devastating because you put so much into this dog. You're like, I get to take it home, right? And your parents are like, no, we don't need another dog. But of course, it's amazing they got adopted. And each time mine got adopted, and it was a beautiful moment. And so we've rescued my whole life. My dad's a dairy farmer. He's had border collies and a bunch of different other kinds of dogs. And so it's always been a big passion of mine. I've worked in vets my whole life. I've done a lot of reception work and kennel or tech work in veterinary clinics. And when I was living in New York, I had my oldest daughter, and on Saturdays I would work at the vet. And that was kind of my way of getting a little bit of my mental health, my identity back on the weekend, and giving my husband some time to spend with our daughter, which was really important to him as well. And then when we moved here to Austin, in Texas, I wanted to do something similar after we had a 1-year-old at the time, and I wanted something similar to translate, but I didn't want to get a new job. So I looked at our nearest animal shelter, wanted to make sure it was a no-kill because that's super important to me. And I know for me, I'm an empath, so it would be really hard to go to a kill shelter, invest so much time into an animal, and then show up the next week and they're gone. That just is devastating. And I give so much credit to people that do that work because it's so important. I just know for me, it would take a very big mental toll on me, which I'm sure it does for them as well. So I found and I started volunteering about 4 years ago, and it was just to walk dogs. I would go every Saturday. I would walk as many dogs as I could in those 3 hours in the morning, and then I would come home, and then I would kind of table it until the next weekend. And I got pregnant with my second daughter, and obviously over time I couldn't walk dogs anymore because I was 8 months pregnant, and those trails are a little dangerous. The trip that could have been bad. So I stopped volunteering for a while, and then I started taking my oldest back. She's obsessed with cats, and we have a lot of cats that need socialization and love. So I tabled the dogs for a while and then went back with the cats. And finally, I was able to start walking dogs again. And I went back and I noticed that a lot of the dogs that I had walked years ago were still in the shelter. And for me, that was a big wake-up call. What's going on here? Why are these dogs still here? Because every time when I would walk dogs, I would leave and I would say, I love you so much, but I hope I never see you again, right? Because I would hope
Yeah.
you get adopted. And when I would go back and they were still there, I was happy to see them, of course, but it was also very depressing and sad that I would think of my week and how many things I did that week, going to hang out with friends, spending time with my kids, and they just sat there in their kennels for 22 hours a day. And it took a big toll on me. And so when I started making treats, it was just this fun thing. But then I thought, what if I could turn the time that I'm spending after my kids go to bed to monetarily give back to these animals that I can't spend more time than I already do because I have 2 young kids at home. So I do have time after they go to bed. How can I put that time to good use to help these animals that I can't help as much as I would like to? And so I decided from the jump that I would donate 50% of all my sales to Paw Shelter. And I've been able to do that. Obviously, it's not a real money-making operation here. I'm not rolling in it, but I've been able to sustain the business. And I've taken on, I think, 6 other rescues and organizations since I started. Battle for the Bully, Animal Pad. When the fires happened in Hawaii, I really wanted to do something. One of my brand reps was like, hey, can you think about doing something for the Maui Humane Society? And I was like, let's do it. So I said, let's donate 100% of sales to the Maui Humane Society, and I'll keep this up and running until forever. Like, we'll see how much we can get. In 3 weeks, we donated $600.
That's incredible.
It's just awesome. I want to donate so much more money, but obviously we have to sustain a home and have to raise. We have to pay for 2 kids that, need all the things. And so this has been an amazing way to spoil dogs, which I love to do. It's so fun making treats for dogs that are really good quality, that are great ingredients, but also being able to actually give back to things that I really believe in. And I know it's making a big difference. So it's amazing. I've pinched myself every day that this is my life.
I think that what you're doing is just so incredible. And I obviously found you on Instagram and immediately became a big supporter of what you were doing, because you do give back so much. And that's, exactly why I wanted the podcast to be affiliated with you, because we are really into rescuing and giving back and trying to educate people on other ways that they can help give back besides donating, monetarily. And you and I have visited before about this, and you told me a story about a dog that kind of inspired you to start advocating for these long stay dogs. Would you mind sharing that story with the listeners?
I would love to. Absolutely love to. When I started volunteering about 4 years ago, there was a dog at the shelter named Biffer, and I'm going to get emotional because he's a big dog on my heart. I started walking him, and he was a green dog. So there's levels to. Most shelters have levels because some dogs have behavior concerns that they don't want just a random new volunteer walking. So he was a green dog because he was young, he was easy to walk, no problems at all. And like I said, I took those breaks with my oldest and then my youngest, and I came back and he was still there. And it had been 4 years. And I had that moment that I talked about previously where I had done all these things. I had another child. I spent some time with my oldest child. She went to pre-K. There's all these milestones that I had gone through, and he was still there. And so it was super upsetting and depressing and sad, because in a shelter, I get anxiety walking into those kennels just being in there for 10, 15 minutes. It's so loud. It's debilitating for just a person. I can't imagine being an animal in there for a day, let alone years. And I know that the work that I do is so important, because you're basically working against every single day that they're in there. You're undoing all the trauma that they're put through just sitting in a shelter. And the shelter is amazing. They do a fantastic job of keeping the animals super clean, giving them enrichment, giving them play groups, all the things that they can do, but it's not a home, right? So when I was with him, I would spend as much time as I could, and he had his people. But over the years, his behavior really started to degrade, and he became institutionalized is really what it came down to. He wasn't very trusting of a lot of people. He loved his people and his inner circle, but there was just a situation that was really led to his demise. He was in the play yard, and a staff member went in to just see him because he seemed like he was interested in having her come and visit with him. And unfortunately, he bit her. And in Texas, they have an absolutely barbaric law. It's all Texas. It's not specific to really any shelter, where the dog has to spend 10 days in a bite quarantine because of a rabies concern, where it makes no sense because most of the shelter dogs that have been there for long enough have their vaccinations, right? So there should be no concern for rabies, but they have to be quarantined for 10 days, no human interaction whatsoever. And so for a dog that's been through something traumatic like Biffer had, to sit in a kennel for 10 days without any sort of positive interaction, it really led to, it broke him. And after he got out of bite quarantine, I noticed such a shift in him. And I honestly didn't even try to pet him after that point because I didn't want to be another kind of notch on his bite belt, right? So I spent time with him, but I would just walk him. Even remember in the last couple weeks, I would walk him and his leash would get stuck under his arm, as they do, right? And I was even nervous to try to get his leash out from under because I didn't want to put him in a position where he had to spend another 10 days. So I just left it and we walked along. And at the end of the walk, I obviously took his leash off and he got untangled. But unfortunately, the shelter got to a point where there were not enough people that could handle him safely. And they were nervous to adopt him out because they didn't know if the person that would adopt him would be a safe person in his inner circle. So ultimately, they had to euthanize him. And I spent the Sunday before his euthanasia date, I brought him a steak dinner that my husband had cooked and like bacon fat. And it was amazing. It was an amazing meal. And I walked him for 3 hours and I spent as much time with him as I could. And it's just devastating because he had obviously been through some trauma before he got to the shelter. And it just exacerbated sitting there for so long, for so many years. And some dogs are way more resilient than others. We had a dog that I actually recently got adopted from, and she's the happiest dog ever. She's so joyful. She obviously has a little bit of trauma because she's not very trusting with certain people, but she is so happy. And every time you see her in her kennel, she's wagging her booty like best day ever. But some dogs really break down sitting there. And people just walking past their kennel all the time, they develop kennel stress. And it's debilitating and it's frustrating because I feel like more people need to understand that this is happening. And there's even dogs that are amazing, easy dogs, right? Where they are good with dogs, good with kids, good with cats, ready to go home and just kind of blend right into your family. And they're getting euthanized because we have such space constraints. And I don't know if it's, the pandemic or what has caused this influx of dogs and animals in general to keep coming into these shelters, but it's a real problem. And I feel like once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And that's where I'm at, where I have to do this because if I don't, who's going to,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And this is something that we've talked about on other episodes where, the backyard breeding and the puppy mills kind of ramped up their output of puppies during the pandemic.
Yeah, and people were like, oh, we're at home all the time. Mm-hmm. We'll get a dog. And then after things started to go back to normal, they were like, oh, well, now we have this dog here that we don't have time
Separation anxiety, not kennel trained, destructive. And instead of getting a trainer and correcting behaviors, they're dropping them off at shelters and putting them in these really awful situations. Because like you said, some of these dogs either experienced trauma previously or they were in a perfectly happy, loving situation and they feel like they were left here and abandoned. So that's traumatic.
Which causes trauma, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, either way, it's a triggering situation to put a dog into. And I mean, I've volunteered in rescues and, worked with animal control, being a vet tech, and walking through is very stressful. I mean, as a human, it's stressful. And like you said, I can't even imagine the stress and the anxiety that puts on dogs simply having to exist in that situation 24/7. So volunteer work is super, super important because, you're giving the gift of your time to these dogs who have no other contact or engagement with people. And that's legitimately the thing I think that keeps them grounded.
Absolutely.
Now, you had a dog that was in there for a really long time that you told me about. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about that situation and how that one ended differently than Biffer?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Biffer was euthanized, I sat actually at my desk that I'm sitting at right now, and I said, I can do two things right now. I could quit volunteering, never go back, and just kind of end that chapter of my life because I am so devastated and the pain is so real. Or I can say, screw that. I'm going to do something with this pain and I'm going to channel it and I'm going to make sure that never happens to any animal that I personally interact with. Obviously, I wish I could make a lasting impact across the world, right? That would be absolutely amazing. But I look at rescue as a massive bucket of water, and there's so many holes. And if you try to plug too many holes, you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to drain yourself and you're not going to be able to continue. So I have one little hole that I have zeroed in on, and I'm doing my absolute darndest to plug that hole as much as I possibly can. And every single dog that I come into physical contact with, I want to make an impact on them and find them the perfect situation so that they never have to go back to the shelter. And Stella is one that my friend Amanda, who runs the Long Stay Project, she really got me inspired to start this from the jump when Biffer was euthanized. She advocates for long stay dogs in Central Texas, but the one that I volunteer at is too far for her physically. So she really wrote the book on advocation and how this should look. And so I kind of started doing something similar to what she does, where you just blast social media. I know it can get extremely overwhelming being on social media because it's constant, right? This dog's going to be euthanized on Tuesday. This dog's going to be euthanized on Thursday. It's like, okay, but sharing does help. I started an Instagram account called and I started sharing a lot of the dogs that I work with personally. And Stella was adopted from Amanda's shelter in Kyle, Texas, and then returned because she started resource guarding the dad and the family. And she was brought to my shelter, and Amanda texted me and said, "Hey girl, Stella's at your shelter now. She's too far for me. Can you kind of take her under your wing?" I said, absolutely. I fell in love with her over, Amanda's social media. So I was already hooked on Stella. I went to meet her the very first day and she barked her head off at me. She was obviously barrier reactive and very stressed out from everything she had been through. And so I said, "That's all right, girl. I'll be back." And so I left her. I didn't want to overstress her. But the next time I was at the shelter, I literally just sat outside her kennel and tossed her treats. And we built a rapport with each other. And I finally, was like, "I think you're ready." And I went into her kennel and oh my gosh, this dog can give the most amazing barrel roll belly rubs that you've ever experienced in your entire life. And she is my soul dog, my surrogate dog that I could never adopt because she doesn't like kids, unfortunately. And so I started with Amanda sharing her everywhere. I made reels about just taking her to Starbucks, and I would put a dog bed in the back of my minivan and we would just snuggle for an hour. And I would just spend as much time with her as I could. I found a trainer from Facebook and we started bringing her in to help us work with the long stays with reactivity towards other dogs, stranger danger fear, basic manners. And she really helped us a lot with helping these long stays become the best versions of themselves. And Stella was involved in those trainings and she did amazing. So through my page, there was this amazing woman who had followed me since I started it about 6 months ago. Her name is Aisha. And she at one point had 7 dogs, but she, in her recent rescue, passed away from cancer. And she messaged me literally last Wednesday and was like, "Hey girl, I think I'm ready to start fostering." And I said, "I know the perfect dog for you." She's a single woman. She works from home. I said, "What do you think about Stella?" And I sent her a couple of videos of Stella and she immediately fell in love with her. And she said, "I got to be honest with myself. I'm not a foster kind of person. I'm an adopt kind of a person." So from that point forward, she really was hooked on Stella. But of course, we had to have them meet. And she met her this past Sunday and fell in love. And Stella is doing absolutely amazing. And that story just gives me so much hope because I know that everybody has a need for an animal. Maybe you're not in a situation right now where you're ready. Your life might not, call for an animal. But I talked to my husband about it and I said, we're not going to be able to rescue our way out of this. How are we going to save these animals? Because more keep coming every single day. And he said, people's situations are going to change. People's circumstances are going to change. Unfortunately, animals don't live forever, right? So this is exactly what happened. Aisha's amazing Sabella was an incredible dog and got her through so many tough times, but she passed on, right? And Aisha strongly believes that the universe called her to Stella, and Sabella kind of had a big part of that as well. So I know that all of these dogs have their people out there. We just have to find them, and I will never give up.
And that is exactly what we need. Is we need more people like you who will not give up, because there are going to be cases, like you said, where we have dogs that are easy and ready to just blend right into a family. And then you have other cases where that's not the situation. You told me about another dog, Zion,
Yep.
who you said took 6 meet and greets, and he was there for 560 days before he got adopted.
No.
I mean, that's a big span of time. That's a lot. But to know that it is possible to still find these dogs homes, especially when, one, they've been there a long time, or, you know, they're older dogs, because not everybody is able to rescue a young dog or wants a puppy. And, you know, it takes a special kind of person to rescue a senior dog. So I think your husband's right. I think people's situations will change. There will be openings in homes, you know, unfortunately, not maybe for the best of reasons all of the time.
Right.
But I think that, you know, there are people out there who can help fix this situation a little bit at a time. And unfortunately, I think that we are at a point where the whole situation with the euthanization is just going to continue this way for a little while. And it's really sad, and it really sucks a lot. But until we find that even space and stop some of this overbreeding and, you know, kind of get a control on the whole situation with puppy mills and backyard breeders as you know, the entire United States, we're going to just continue to have these kinds of problems. And that's something that we're going to talk about on another episode, because it's something that needs to be regulated, and it's something that we need to kind of take more control over, I think. We talked about a little bit about other ways to help other than, you know, purchasing your treats, which obviously we want people to do. We want people to purchase your treats because they are fantastic treats. I've mentioned this several times before. Fitz is a very, very picky eater. He is not one to just roll with the punches when it comes to his treats. He's very specific. And, you know, Fitz is known for his bedtime cake antics. And we'll plug Lazy Dog here for a second, because that's his favorite thing. But we also do treats by Lazy Dog. We do treats from other people who make treats. And I actually did a little taste test with Fitz, which Bridget has seen the footage results of this, where I allowed Fitz to pick which treat he wanted. And he picked the Wild Wolfe Pack Treats every single time, except for when it came to bedtime cake. And the bedtime cake was the only time that Bridget's treats did not win out. And that was really fun. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, I like cake too, Fitz. Don't worry.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We love the cake. But, you know, the one thing that I will say about your treats that I think that is just of important thing to note, because not everybody reads directions. Let's just be honest about that. Your treats are freezed or dehydrated. Is that right?
They're dehydrated, yeah.
Yes. So they have to go in the refrigerator after you open them. So anybody who's looking to get some of her treats, make sure after you open them, you put them in the refrigerator, because they need to stay fresh. And that's important for, you know, making sure that the treats stay okay and they're edible for your dogs and they don't go bad.
Yeah, they're human-grade ingredients. So bananas, chicken, they're fresh. I mean, my dog actually has a lot of food allergies, and that's been kind of a silver lining with all of this. I know exactly what's going into her treats. I don't have to worry, oh my gosh, there could be a food allergy in here. I know exactly what's going in, and it's awesome because there's really only like 6 ingredients, and they're human grade ingredients. My 3-year-old actually is obsessed with eating our treats. I can't say that they're human because I have not been licensed to sell them as human ingredient treats. But that's one of her favorite snacks. Just, are those peanut butter? I'm like, girl, I need to sell those. Those are for a dog.
That is really funny. Well, you know it's good if the little kids like them too, right? Because kids can be seriously picky eaters too. But like I said, obviously you make donations, 50% of your sales, and then you have specific bags of treats that people can purchase to give to the shelter dogs as their own treats. But working in rescue, aside from, you know, volunteering your physical time, walking dogs, and running programs like this, what are some ways that you suggest that people get involved with rescues?
Yeah. So obviously, a very easy thing to do is education. I think once more people are aware of the fact of what is going on in a shelter environment, that if you are interested in adding a pet to your family, go to a shelter. You never know. They have so many different breeds. They have so many different types of dogs, different energy levels. I challenge every single person, if you are going to look for an animal, go to a shelter. If they don't have it at that shelter, go to another shelter. There are so many. There's multiple shelters in Austin that are literally full to the point where dogs are sitting in crates for 24 hours a day right now. So there's plenty of animals out there to choose from. I challenge everybody to try that first. And if you don't succeed, that's okay. Go to another shelter. But another option that is amazing that we have actually done ourselves is fostering. We lived in New York for 5 years. We got our dog Wendy from Little Texas, actually. She was driven to us on a semi. She was found on an abandoned highway, and we rescued and adopted her. We got our second dog, Evie, who was found in an abandoned warehouse in Tennessee. She had heartworm, she had Ehrlichia, all the things, all the bad things. And she had never had any human interaction whatsoever until she was found, obviously. And we fostered her for probably 6 months or so, and she and Wendy got along beautifully. And we finally realized, I worked at a vet at the time and I could afford her heartworm treatment. And so I told my husband, she's perfect. We need to keep her. So it's honestly like, I kind of look at it as test driving cars, right? You're test driving a dog to see, does this fit in with our lifestyle? Does this make sense for our family situation right now? And if it doesn't, that is totally okay. We had a dog named Faye that we fostered, and she was a puppy and she had hookworm, and it was kind of a nightmare because humans can get hookworm. Mm-hmm. And her energy was through the roof. She was a lot of dog for us in a basement apartment in New York. And so we worked with the rescue, obviously, and fostered her, but we found her an amazing family. The daughter had autism. The mom lived in a really beautiful house with woods everywhere. She had 2 other dogs. We brought Faye up to meet this family, and it was literally perfect. She loves running. I actually keep in touch with them. She's probably 10 now.
Oh, wow.
And so if a dog doesn't fit in with your lifestyle, that's completely okay. You're giving them the shelter, valuable information about the animal in a home environment, because what I have learned doing this work, these animals are not the same out of the shelter as they are in the shelter. I have a dog named Odie that I advocate for strongly. He's a plot hound pity mix, and he has severe barrier reactivity to a point where there's only one staff at the shelter that can safely handle him. He is so scary with every other person that works there that they can't even get him out of his kennel. I can, because I've never had an issue with him. There's something about the staff walking by his kennel every day that builds up so much frustration in him that he just gets pissed every time they walk by, and it's scary. And I don't doubt that fear. I mean, I've experienced it one time while a staff member was next to me with him. He got into a foster. We found a foster for him. He's been in there for 2 months, and he is amazing. He is thriving. He hasn't had any issues whatsoever since he's been in the foster home. And that's just a tribute to, don't look at an animal behind a kennel and say, this is who they are, because it's not who they are. They need a chance in a foster home. And even if you can give a dog a weekend break, that is valuable information for the rescue and the shelter and the dog. It gives them time to decompress. It gives them time to experience a home environment and give them a little bit of hope. Can you imagine being in a kennel for 22 hours a day and then getting to lay on a dog bed in a quiet space? Heaven, right? Mm-hmm. So fostering is an amazing option as well.
Another thing that we talked about was providing resources to smaller rescues, because large rescues typically have a lot of funding. They have a lot of donation people. They have more volunteers, and you're working in some more of these very remote rescues. These are small rescues in small towns, in Texas. And just like in Iowa, it's the same. There are smaller towns, and here in Iowa, like a small town could be, under 1,000 people, maybe even under 500 people, depending on the location. And you're talking about having a hut for a rescue versus, the whole scenario where they have a yard to play in and they have more volunteers to interact with them, and all of the things. So I think it's really important to note that you're volunteering and creating these programs in small shelters because you want to advocate for dogs that are less likely to get homes because of their location. And I think that that is something that's really, really important because, again, there are great rescues that are very, very large, but I think that looking for those smaller rescues and finding those dogs that would otherwise get overlooked because of their location is really important.
Totally. Yeah, there are actually a lot of rescues in the area that are even smaller and less resources than has 2 locations. There's a few, I don't know the names of them, but my friend volunteers at them and goes every Tuesday, and she's the only volunteer for 4 or 5 days. So those dogs aren't getting walked at all. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So in every town, I'm sure, every place that people live, there's got to be a shelter somewhere that needs extra support, extra resources. And you could be the game changer volunteer to just, if you're great on social media, fantastic. You can create, eyes for these dogs that normally wouldn't get seen. The rescue that I volunteer at, they don't get a lot of foot traffic because it's 30 minutes drive from my house, and it's really in a rural area. And so they really rely on social media and next door. And I have a reputation in my area now. It's like, oh, there's Bridget posting again. And it works. It really works. I got a dog that was at the shelter for probably 6 months. She's an older dog. I shared her on Nextdoor, and this lady's like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for a senior dog. I have a cat. How does she do with cats? Wonderful. She's now in the home. It really does work. And it gets so annoying. I completely understand when I'm going through, I get overwhelmed by it because, yes, this dog's going to be euthanized on Tuesday. There's nothing I can do about a dog in Los Angeles that's going to be euthanized Tuesday other than to share. But it does get to a point where people just keep scrolling because it's too hard to look at, right? It's too hard to look at. People tell me all the time, I could never volunteer in a shelter. It's too hard. But you have to put yourself in these animal shoes. It is too hard for them to be living there. So what can we do independently and as a community to ensure that they get a chance out? Because we get to live our lives, right? We get to go about our day-to-day lives with, life is hard, but we have creature comforts that a lot of them don't have. So whatever we can do to help. And it's also thinking you might have a dog now, treat it really well, because there could be a potential situation where you have a kid and your dog does not get along well with kids, and it becomes a safety situation where even through a trainer, it's just not a good mix. You might have to, surrender your dog to a shelter. You're going to set your dog up for a much better chance of getting adopted if you have treated it well for its entire life with you, rather than, not doing the best things to it and giving a little bit of trauma. And then in the shelter, that is just exacerbated like a virus in them. So making sure that you're treating your animals well, making sure that, so I hear this all the time, I don't have enough time for my dog, so I'm going to surrender it to a shelter. Your dog would rather be sitting on a freaking dog bed for 12 hours a day when you have to work or whatever than sitting in a shelter in a kennel on the concrete for 22 hours a day. Make time. If you don't have time, make time. Or there's enrichment. There's so many enrichment opportunities. Lick mats. Like there is a way. You just have to think of what is the worst case scenario, because unfortunately, a lot of these people that surrender their animals, those are the first ones to be euthanized.
Yeah.
So think of that. Like, your dog is better off with you, with a person it's known its entire life, than sitting in a strange, scary place,
I 100% agree with that. And I think that you're right about Instagram and social media in general. You've shared so many things. I always try to share your posts when you pop them up in your stories, because you never know. You never know who's going to see it. Stories are kind of random, just like the rest of the algorithm. And somebody 5 states over might see it and go, that's the dog for me. And now you've contributed to saving a dog's life. And like you said, there's nothing I can do about a dog in LA either, but I can absolutely share that story and potentially help find that dog a home. That little 10 seconds of effort that it takes for you to share that story could be a dog's life. Mm-hmm. It could be a dog's life.
And you don't have to share anyone, because I think it becomes like I was saying, where you got to scroll past it. Come on, like this person just shares all day. That's all it is animals. And it does get overwhelming. But if there's an animal that really speaks to you and you feel connected to their story, I mean, I connect to all of their stories, but just share it. And like you said, you really never know. Or you might have someone in your life that's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that constantly. I feel like my brain is a phone book, right? Where I'm just filtering through, like, could this person work out? Oh my gosh, this person talked to me 3 months ago and said, hey, if you know this kind of a dog, my mother-in-law's been looking. I go through that. Okay, Odie, what kind of a home would be best for him? Just think of that, because you never know what kind of a matchmake you can make that could literally be a game changer for this animal.
Yeah. And again, that's another area that social media really helps in, because we make connections through social media. We become friends with each other, and that opens us up to a whole new category of people where we are sharing our experiences and our time and our resources with other people. And it really creates this amazing little community that we build trust in, and we support each other. And we promote small businesses and trainers, and we get dogs adopted out of shelters. And it's really, really cool to watch all of this happening.
Also, remember, if you do have a kid and your dog doesn't like the kid, you don't necessarily have to get rid of the dog. There's adoption for children.
Oh my gosh, don't stop.
The views of Josh Watson do not necessarily reflect the views of Straight Up Dog Talk.
You can tell Josh and I, we don't have kids. Neither of us had kids. So, we're all in dog parents over here.
Oh my gosh, when my girls are putting me through it, I'm like, Susie, my dog, come here. She's amazing. I mean, she's fecal incontinent, bless her heart. She's been through a lot. And I would change her diapers for the rest of my life rather than my girls. Oh my gosh.
I had two rescue Yorkies. The first one, my first dog, was a puppy mill rescue. He was a breeding dog. And I got him at 3. And the second one was another Yorkie. I've talked about them on the show before, but he was never fixed, and he was a door darter. Both of them, diapers. Like, I started on belly bands, and then I realized, like, I was washing belly bands. I was cutting up, pads, feminine pads to put in the belly bands. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get infant diapers.
Perfect.
And, yeah, they wore infant diapers for years.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah. And I had no problem changing their diapers or cleaning up their poop.
And it's all about, shifting your perspective, the whole pivot movement that's happening right now. You have to pivot. You have to be able to make time for your dogs. You have to be able to train your dogs. You have to be able to feed them the right diet. You have to provide enrichment. There's all of these things that are happening. But literally, if you just spend 5 or 10 minutes a day doing each of these things for your dog, that's more than the dogs in the shelters are getting.
100%.
And like you said, you have to remember that. Okay, you're gone 12 hours a day. Fine. Hire somebody to come over and let your dog out in the middle of the day so that they get a bathroom break. But don't turn them over to the shelter. That's like the worst thing you can do. If you don't think that you have time for your dog, there are things that you can do in your lifestyle to adjust that so that your dog benefits and so that you benefit, versus potentially ending their life by leaving them. Absolutely. And that's just, I mean, if you need ideas or you have questions about that, you guys can reach out to Bridget or myself on social media. We'll make sure that we tag both her and her Wild Wolfe Pack Treats account. The last thing I just want to touch on is, if you could do anything with your business, if you could take it to its highest potential, what would be your dream?
Oh, man, that's hard, because I've kind of put myself in a situation where I do it all myself. There's been a couple instances where I've thought about kind of branching out, but I don't know if I'll ever find someone as passionate, maybe I'm wrong, as I am for the quality of the treats that I make, the quality of the interactions that I have. I'm such a people person. I'm actually a sociology major, and I love people and I love interacting with people. And it's not just about making dogs treats for me. I've really come to love, I'm going to get emotional again. I'm a very emotional person. I've come to really fall in love with a lot of the dogs that I make treats for, and being able to follow them on social media has been such a joy to me, and getting to see them day to day. It's amazing. And I feel like I have all these dogs in the world now. That is absolutely incredible. But if I was able to find people in my circle or outside of my circle that could take what I'm doing and, make it better. I mean, I've gone through so many changes in my business. I started making the treats and I had them in these cute little like pink bags, and I wasn't dehydrating in the beginning. And I found, with the ingredients that I use, I was dealing with molds because the USPS is not as fast as I would love them to be. And I would ship treats to Florida and they would get them and be like, hey, they're moldy. I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. It's hot. These aren't dehydrated. There's still a lot of moisture in them. And so I started dehydrating treats, and I used to hand stamp every single bag of my bags that I make. And it would take forever, but I loved the personal touch to it. And then I had a massive order for Brittany, Rescued and Rowdy, her wedding. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot hand stamp 40 bags. That's going to take way too long. And she needed them within a certain time frame. And I was like, hey, Britt, do you mind if I just print them? And she's like, oh yeah, no problem. So I printed them and they look so much better. I mean, the quality is so much better. Printing looks so good. And I have a lot more options as far as personalizations. I can do different fonts. I can do different colors. I can do different images on the bags. And so it's just all these little growth moments that my business has been through. I could totally see expanding into, maybe we've talked about it before, like a dog shop. That would be incredible. The dream, honestly, I would love to run my own rescue one day and do it the right way. And I mean, each shelter has its own drama and intricacies that make it struggle, but really coming down to the foundation of these animals. I worked in foster care. I was a social worker in New York, and everybody has been through something, whether it's animal or human, and it is not our fault from what we've been through. We need to treat people better in general. We need to be kinder, but we also need to take these animals for who they are now. And yes, they've been through some terrible things, and maybe they have behaviors that reflect that, but we need to help them grow and become better and not condemn them for the way that they're acting now, because at the end of the day, they have been through such trauma. A lot of these animals have been through things that I can't even imagine surviving. And I want to give, each animal that I interact with a chance to grow through their experience, rewrite a lot of their negative experiences, and have people that are so passionate about this. Obviously, I don't have many boundaries in my life. I'm like, let's stay up till 12 in the morning baking treats and doing sheltering stuff. So maybe some work-life balance would probably be good, but having a shelter where I have a little bit more control of communicating with people, getting people motivated to make a massive difference, and creating a reputation in wherever I'm living at that time to get these animals, into homes, and create programs that not only get animals into homes, but create preventative programs that can stop, maybe like a low-cost spay and neuter clinic, or like low-cost vet care, because I know it's expensive. And then having the treats in their own little bakery in the shelter, like having a little pet shop in the shelter would be incredible. And then all proceeds going back to, that would be fantastic. I would love that. So thank you for helping me dream.
Well, I'm just going to say this here and now, because this podcast is all about providing opportunities. So you guys heard it from Bridget. If you want to work with Bridget and help her dream come true, reach out, because how incredible would that be? To create this amazing, beautiful model of how rescue should actually be run, and kind of correct the system in that area as well.
That'd be amazing. I am limited right now because of my beautiful, amazing children. And obviously I only have enough hours in the day, but obviously meeting people can really make connections and make lasting impacts. And so I'm totally open to conversations and moving forward in ways that can help more than I currently am.
Well, like I said, you heard it here first. And if you're interested in seeing where this dream could potentially go with Bridget, reach out. I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We're going to call it. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your passion with us.
It's a pleasure. You two are amazing. I really appreciate, what you're doing here and creating a conversation to help educate people more. And I said it before, you don't know it. You don't know what you don't know. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. And we just need more people to see and be aware and not be scared of it or, horrified of it. It's horrifying. It is absolutely horrifying. But what can you do in your day or in your week or in your month to make a lasting impact that will make it less horrifying for everybody as a collective? So thank you so much for bringing education and knowledge and just getting people to hopefully hear things that they typically wouldn't. So.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And we hope that this gets to all the right ears in the world. And again, thank you so much for being on this episode of Straight Up Dog Talk. And I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited, produced, and co-hosted by Josh Wasta under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe to be sure you don't miss an episode, and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.